Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Doesn't look like my. Oh, this might be too loud. Bring that down a notch. And another notch. 1, 2, 3. Toast. Alright, that's not too loud, I don't think. Alright, looks like we got a follow. Thank you for the follow. Let me just... Okay, hopefully this is working. Let me...
Wasn't gonna do a lot of damage, so she's
Oh.
saving.
Mute that. Let's see if this works. Is that working? Maybe. I don't think it is. What about now? Okay, that looks like it's working. Unmute. Mute button. Mute button deactivate. Alright. Here we go. Let's turn that off for now and let's get this party started. Right. Hello, welcome one and all to my first stream ever, so please excuse any technical difficulties. I did a couple dry runs to kind of see how everything was going to work. Did that a couple weeks ago, so hopefully I don't run into too many technical issues. Please let me know about any volume issues, if my voice is too loud, if desktop audio is loud. And we're going to get started here pretty immediately. I am RJAnime. I have a bachelor's degree in animation. I have done lots of amateur animation while I was in the military. Did it for years, got out the military, and then decided that I wanted to pursue animation more professionally. So I went, got my degree, and been doing animation ever since. I do freelance animation, so I do small animations for individual clients, sometimes an individual client, sometimes a small company. I haven't did any commissions for any like huge companies, but they're commissions that I hold near and dear to my heart. I appreciate everyone. I got a couple commissions that I'm working on now. They're private commissions, which a lot of times they often are, so I can't display them. But luckily, this one that I'm working on now, the requester has given me permission to put it in my demo reel when I'm done with it, so that way I can at least show some clips of the work that I've done. So be sure to chime in the chat. This chat window hopefully should be integrated with all the websites. YouTube, hello YouTube, Twitch, everybody on Twitch, what's up? And Picarto. So no matter where you are watching my stream, you should be able to chat and all get it integrated, and I should have everything come up on my my window here. If I don't respond to your chat, I apologize because I should see everything. So let me know how everyone's doing today. I will also be doing a edited version of the video to place on YouTube instead of just leaving the entire stream on YouTube. What I plan on doing is taking the stream, chopping it down to kind of the high points, the highlights, the more instructional portions of it to kind of, so that way if someone wants to just get the meat and potatoes of the information, they can, kind of that quick, but also leave up the full stream so anyone who wants to sit there and watch, the whole spiel as it unfolds, then they can do that as well. um let's see. So my this stream, I'll be teaching animation. We're going to start with the basics. The basics are basics for a reason. You got to get down the principles of animation, what I like to call the 15 principles of animation. I know a lot of you have been like, what? I thought it was only 12 principles of animation. Well, I got 15. I added a few of my own because I feel like they're basic and I feel like they're just as important as those original 12. It's kind of the ones that I've added are kind of uh, things that I go by, things that have helped me be successful with my animations, uh, things that I feel that a lot of some people do, some people ignore, and I think that maybe they should. Which is why I consider them part of the principles. That's why I say it's 15 principles of animation, not just 12. And we're going to learn all about them. Things that I go by. So, what we're going to do is get it rolling here. It doesn't look like my After Effects window is showing what I see in my preview screen. So what I'm probably going to do is go ahead and render this out because I can see my time bar sliding back and forth, but the actual animation is not showing up here. It's nothing extravagant. It's just something simple I threw together just kind of as a visual example. What if I do this? Does that work? And what if I double click here? Nope, that didn't change it either. I did. And click here. Switch that to. That's not going to do it either. Well, this is frustrating. Let's go back to the composition window. That is not helpful at all. That looks worse. Alright, apologize for that. I'm going to go ahead and go to my composition, add to queue, and I'm just going to render this to the desktop for quick access. So let's see. I'm going to switch this to my project settings. Quick, fast, in a hurry. So we're going to get that rendered out. Man, I love that sound. That sound is like, oh, ding, fries are done. That is the sound that anyone who works with After Effects loves because that means your render is finished. It's time to look at it and reap the benefits of crap. Not the benefits of crap, the benefits of what you just did, which hopefully won't be crap. So let's go back. I want to render out this one too. And while I am using Adobe After Effects right now, After Effects is not the focus of my animation lessons. I try not to focus too much on the software side of things. I'm going to be focusing more on the process because while Software can definitely help you. It's not the end all and be all. You don't have to go out and buy expensive software just to animate. You can use paper and pencil, uh, and you can animate just fine. You don't have to go out and spend money if you don't have the money to spend. A lot of programs, there's some programs out there that are free that you can use to animate, um, and that will definitely come up when I get into one of my extra principles of animation. I will be talking about softwares, pros, cons, and things like that. I will give tips about specific software that I use because I find that it's helpful. Um, and most of it will be some of the simpler functions, so they should have similar functions in other programs, whether they are or not, is really just an obstacle that you may have to deal with, or it could not be an obstacle at all, depending on the software you're using, or if you're not using software at all. We'll be doing, as I mentioned, this is about the process of animation, getting those steps, getting the method, and once you understand the method, the software is just an extra tool in your belt. You know, if you go out and buy, crazy chainsaw and all this kind of stuff, doesn't mean you can just go down and chop a tree and make furniture. Because I don't know how to do that at all. Um, you know, having all the shiny tools doesn't, make you, a star. You know, uh, it's kind of the same with if you want to think about superheroes. Like the Iron Man suit is pretty badass. Just because you throw the Iron Man suit on somebody doesn't make them Iron Man. Yes, you can put on a suit, you can have all the tech, but are you going to use it in a way that's going to like really make you Iron Man? You got to have that mentality. And a lot of times, yes, the Iron Man suit does have the built-in AI, but at the same time, Tony Stark, he's got that mentality to be able to think on the fly and be able to actually use it. You got to be able to use it, which is why it's very important to focus on those basics. Um, while I get this rendering, um, that's that sound. Love it. Let's get this one done. I'm just going to render out a few of these. I'm not going to do all of them, mainly because they're just visual aids and are not exactly make or break to the learning process. There's other examples that you can look up online to kind of give you that visual. There's quite a few videos out there as well as websites about the 12 principles of animation. Um, like I said, I got 15, so I got a different approach. I kind of approach it differently than some people, um, mainly because of my personal experience, things that I've learned along the way, things that I've learned in school, things that I've learned with from my colleagues and some of my peers. Um, let's get that one, turn that on. And then let's render this one out too. This one's kind of important. Had to render Q. Uh, so another thing that we will be doing, in addition to this won't be just a simple lecture as far as me telling you, things to do on how to animate. We will be doing experimentation. I will be experimenting on things that I've personally never done to try some things out that are new. I'm going to be doing, we'll be doing a ball bounce. I hope you take the time to do one yourself. I would like to do what I will call, I had a snazzy name, but I decided to change it. And we're going to, instead of doing, what I like to do is go ahead and start talking about the project that I would like for my viewers to do. And it is called the Blue Ball Bounce Challenge. I challenge anyone out there, whether you have never animated before, whether you've been animated for decades, to animate a blue bouncing ball. And I want it to come in from the left and exit the screen on the right. So start off with your scene. There's nothing there. The ball comes in, it bounces, it leaves on the right side of the screen. And what I would like to do is take everyone's video and put it all together into one long video. And I want your bounce to be no more than 2 seconds, just 1 or 2 seconds. We're talking 24 to 48 frames if you're doing 28 frames, 24 frames per second. It's just a way to kind of like show, imagine the same ball bouncing various scene to scene, but each person can do it differently. I would, if you want to do it on pencil and paper, if you want to do it digitally, if you want to do it 2D, if you want to do it 3D, if you want to do it stop motion, there's a bazillion ways to animate with different mediums. For the purpose of the challenge, I would like for it to be 30 frames per second. I want to do 30 frames per second. It's kind of a standard video frame rate. And that way it's kind of uniform. So when I put the videos together, it doesn't throw anything off, because I don't want to mess anyone's animation up. And one of the things that can definitely get messed up when you render out animation, if you animate to one frame rate and then to have that video converted to a different frame rate, it'll throw the timing off. And something as simple as a ball bounce, it won't be apparent to the naked eye that there's any kind of weirdness to the bounce. If you, like, say, drew it on paper and you animate it at, and you plan for 24 frames per second on a paper animation, then you upload it, convert it into a video, and then change it into a 30 frame per second video, you're not going to make that much of a difference. It's not going to throw anything off and be all crazy. But it's something to keep in mind down the road when you're animating. You want to make sure that your frame rate that you're animating at will be the actual final product. I ran into a situation where I had a very interesting, to say the least, commission for a company called oh, I forgot what the name of it was. Just that quick. Uh, it's gonna come to me. Anyway, the project, Kindred Moon Productions company hired me to do an animation of a snowball, not snowball, snowman, a snowman's face. Basically, the project was for me to create an animation of a snowman's face that would sing some classic Christmas songs. So basically, it was an animation of a face, animation of the lip sync that was along with the music. So it's essentially just a lip sync project with facial animation. And it was like 5 songs, and it was just the face, black background. And the purpose of that was that they, Kendrick Moon Productions, created a video of that a client person would buy the DVD with the animation on it, with the music on it, and place that on a projector. So what the customer would do was go to Walmart or Target or somewhere and buy like a cheap inflatable snowman. And what they would do is take the snowman's face and spray it out and make it completely white so that the inflated snowman doesn't have a face. And then inflate the snowman and set up a projector and project my face, the animated face that I did, onto the inflated snowman. So it's kind of like a prop for decoration. So you can have an inflated snowman that would, sing, these classic Christmas songs. Things like Frosty the Snowman, I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and uh, what was that last one? Can't remember. But I am sick of all of those songs. That was years ago that I did that animation, and I'm still sick of those songs. Lip syncing is very it's a process, especially when you want to do it the right way. There's a lot of software that will auto lip sync for you, and do it for you. And I throw those air quotes up there very snarky because I've seen it, and even some of the new program like Adobe's Go Animate Pro. Don't get me wrong, I love Adobe. Y'all make some great stuff. Um, but the results that they advertise is misleading, especially for someone who is not familiar with animation, because they make it sound as if you'll get perfect results every time. They make it sound like it's super easy and you just do it and you're done with it. Um, and it's more to it than that. It's kind of like, and that kind of goes into another one of my principles of animation that I've added on, which I will get into. Kind of keep those under wraps for right now. I gotta kind of build up that suspense. Anyway, like I was saying, the software can only do so much. Um, it's using programs to listen to words and interpret those words. And anybody who has had a conversation with anybody knows that everybody has an accent. People are from different countries. People grow up in different areas. Um, my accent is definitely interesting to say the least, um, because I grew up in Atlanta, born and raised most of my life. Then as I mentioned earlier, I joined the military, so I spent a lot of times in a lot of different countries. I spent a lot of time around a lot of other different people, and as much as you try to fight it, some of that rubs off on you, and it just kind of becomes part of your speech patterns. Uh, but it never goes away. It's still there, but it definitely gets affected, and programs can't really account for all of that. So that's why. And then there's another thing of the audio quality. Poor audio quality will affect a lip sync program, and one of the biggest things that will affect a auto lip sync program is background noise, because it'll pick up on background noise. Um, hums and ticks and bird tweets and whatever else is in the background. So if you don't have perfectly clean audio, that's definitely going to affect your lip sync. And for the snowman animation, I did use the auto lip sync function. My I did most of I did the facial animation and Adobe After Effects, and then I did the lip sync portion using a Toon Boom Harmony. Toon Boom is another company that makes awesome software. Toon Boom is industry like gold. Like big studios use Toon Boom. I am fortunate enough to be able to have it at home. I don't have the newest version, but I have a working version, and it's paid for, and I don't have to keep paying for it. Same with my Adobe products. I use CS6. I know it's old. Oh, it's not the newest, but guess what? My CS6 is paid for. I don't have to keep paying for it. I'm looking at you, Adobe, with your subscription. Uh, I'm not a big fan of subscription. I do like it in the fact that as a as a freelancer, someone who does commissions, it is nice to have access to it when I need it and not have to pay for it when I don't. I did a uh, commission for a video game company. I don't even know which one, because it was a contract under a contract under a subcontract that got sent to somebody, and they messed the job up because they didn't know what they were doing. So they went and turned and hired me to do it the right way. So it was just a game asset that needed to be re-rigged. But anyway, the I went to Autodesk, who makes Maya, another industry standard program, and instead of buying the whole shebang, spending thousands of dollars, what I did was I just bought a license to last me for 1 month. Um, so that way I could use the software just for that one commission and make my money. So that's a benefit of subscription software. Also, you get all the updates, but the downside is you have to keep paying for it. My CS6 collection is already paid for, so I don't have to keep paying for it, and it's super strong. It's super powerful. It's got more than enough features. Some features I probably don't even know about. Still learning. Always learn. Always learn. Always improve. Uh, it's not a principle, but it should be. There's people out there who get real complacent. Disney, Disney. Excuse me, something was in my throat. I don't know, but some people they get complacent, and so they do the same thing over and over and over again because they're they're just complacent. And there's some people out there that uh, think they have no room for improvement, which is probably the worst thing you can do as an artist. One of the worst things is to think that your art can't improve. I don't know anyone who can't improve because there's no such thing as a perfect person. You can always learn. Um, so that's that. But like coming back from my tangent, I used the auto software to get me started. It got a lot of the lip sync kind of towards where I wanted, but then I went through and redid, I want to say 75% of it. So it got me a good, I say the auto lip sync got me a good 25% of the way to be like really accurate and have really good lip sync. Um, but I went through and it definitely saved me some time, but it's a deadly trap because someone who is not uh, a strong animator, someone who is a lazy animator, or someone who is just unfamiliar would see the result and be like, "Oh, that's great. His mouth is moving. It's in time with the words. Then it's great." But when a mouth is making a shape and it's a oh sound, that's not correct. That's and someone may catch it, someone may not catch it. It's kind of one of those things. Lip syncing doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but having the right mouth shape at the right time will definitely make your overall animation sell well. So we're going to get into these 15 principles of animation now. I am going to what I want to do about this window because it's not even showing anything. Um, hmm, we'll just leave it up for now. It's background fodder. It doesn't really mean anything. Or I could, let's see, could take this off. Bam. And let's make me a little bit bigger. Eat that mushroom from Super Mario Brothers and put myself up this way in this corner. I'm on timeout in the corner. All right. If you notice, in bottom left hand, got the little tip jar. If you would be so inclined to leave a tip, tips are definitely appreciated. Um, Tips will be going towards funding future projects. I am working on several projects right now. Some of them are extra big. Um, and these projects, which I will not be divulging details in just yet, will be available to the public. My projects are very near and dear to me. I've been working on most of them for quite a while. Some of them are in some pretty far along stages. Some are just starting. Um, but that's what any tips or donations will be going towards. They'll be going to help fund those projects. Once I get some more subscribers, get more follows, get more viewers, get a little more interest, I will start opening up about these projects, giving some details. And once I get a large enough following, what I plan on doing is actually having some live streams of the actual production. I have some time set aside while I'm working to just go ahead and go online and stream, and you can see the project actually being made in real time, because I think that would be pretty cool. Especially with animation, I always like to see behind the scenes stuff. So I think, would be a great opportunity now that we have this technology for streaming and stuff like that, where you can actually see a project being made in real time. You'll see me make mistakes. You'll see me not make mistakes. You'll see me probably get mad. You'll probably see me maybe hit a roadblock. See how I deal with that. Who knows what might happen? We don't know. It'll be live, unedited, and raw. But that will be at a later date. So let's start off with all the principles of animation were created pretty much by the team of animators that were working for Disney way back in the day. Let's not make it into a big animation history lesson, but just kind of a bit of a background. They kind of came up with the 12 principles, things that they felt were essential to animation. We're talking way back in the day, but they still hold true today. They definitely still hold true. But the reason why I say there's 15, because I think there's some things that I feel should be added, because I think they're just as important as those 12. Um, but I definitely hold on to the ones that I personally come in with just as much weight. I think they're just as important. Uh, they all have different animators will give you their own personal viewpoints of the 12 principles of animation and which ones are important. A lot, some people feel one thing's more important than the other, and vice versa. Um, but I'm gonna go over to you in an order that I've come up with. They're not exactly ranked, so like the first thing we go on to won't be like what I consider the most important. I will tell you what I feel is the most important when I get to it. But I'm going to start off with the first principle. Um, we're going to call it's called staging. Staging. Principle number one: staging. What does staging do, and why bother? Staging is a way to set up your audience. Because animation takes a lot of work, so you definitely don't want it wasted. And animation can be wasted if your audience is looking right here on the screen, but all your animation takes place like up here, like, and you can definitely animate up here, but what you want to do is set up your staging in a way so that it makes the audience look to that direction. Um, and there's various ways to do that with the way you draw your background, um, with the way you have your characters pose. You can kind of make little ways to kind of draw that eye towards the area that you want. Um, those are called leading lines. And it's definitely something you can do when you're setting up your background. And you can also do it with the way your characters pose. So, say for instance, you want, I don't know, going off the top of my head here, let's say you want an object, a prop to do something, like a toy to magically come to life. You could have, say, a child or an adult or whoever you want, maybe looking at that with like an expression on their face or a kind of a, or maybe a, like the character themselves are expecting to something to happen, and that character is looking or pointing at that object, which will in turn have your audience kind of focus their attention on that object, because you definitely want your audience to not miss anything, um, as much as possible. So that's what staging is. Very important. Definitely something you want to set up. Uh, Staging for me, I feel it kind of starts with the background. Um, I don't animate without a background. I like to have, excuse me, I don't like to have either the background completely done or at least roughed out, so where I know where the ground is, where the sky is, which way the camera is going to be facing, because you have to animate to that. You don't have to. For me, you have to, because you can animate a character doing something or an object or whatever, and then do the background later and have it cater to the animation. I think it's a lot easier, uh, especially from a quality standpoint, to have the background in place, at least the ground plane, so you know where your perspective lines are, you know, um, and have an idea of what you're going to be animating and where the animation is going to take place, because that actually might affect the way a character moves. If you have a character that's walking from one side of the room to the other, you know, if he's in a school, he might just walk nothing to it, right? But what if he's in space? Is he gonna walk the same way? Of course not. The gravity is completely different. If he's underwater, he's not gonna be walking unless he's wearing like a diving suit or something. But even then, he's not gonna be walking the same way as if he's walking down the hall in high school. It's just kind of one of those things where you kind of want to keep that in mind. Um, so let's move on to the second principle, which we will call a squash and stretch. I think this one personally is probably one of, if not the most um, important principles of animation. Squash and stretch. Squash um, gives a sense of weight. It gives a sense of impact. Stretch gives a sense of speed, um, making things seem like they're moving really fast. Um, let's see if I can take this. Eh, let's see. And then we're gonna take this, open up a second window capture. Let's see if this works. Why are you all the way over here? See, that's just wrong. Okay, let's add a new window. So squash and stretch, like I said, is definitely important. You have things squashed down, they show weight. Um, is that one? No. That one? No. That's just not working at all. Not working at all. Let's get rid of that. Working. So we're just going to get rid of that. And let's try, you know what? I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try like this. Do that. And then we're going to do this. That kind of works. It's bootleg. Uh, Running a little slow. But this is an example of a squash and stretch. Uh, Despite the ball falling super slow, um, as it falls, it stretches out, um, gets elongated, and then as it hits the ground, it squashes down. Um, Man, that is really not playing at the rate it was supposed to. When I set this up, I had it set up in Adobe After Effects without rendering it, just because the intention was to scrub back and forth to kind of show you the frames. I wasn't intending it to be played per se. Actually, you know what? Let me do open with. player. Let's try that. Come on. QuickTime, where you at? Okay. This should let me scrub, yeah. So this is what I wanted to do, to be able to scrub. That's the whole purpose of setting it up like this. Um, so we have our ball, and as it falls, it stretches out, and then as it hits the ground, it goes into this little squashy. Got to get that impact in there, and it kind of shows the impact there versus not having that impact. Um, Most objects are gonna squash when they come to a big fall. Unless you're animating objects like a bowling ball is a classic example of something that you probably don't want to do too much squash and stretch unless you're going for a comedic approach uh, and doing now, one good way to do a comedic approach is to do the opposite of what the audience expects because it's like you're waiting for something and then the opposite happens. It's like, ah, that was crazy. It was supposed to do this, but it did that. Um, a good example of that, classic animation, Tom and Jerry, old school. Um, of course, cat's chasing the rat, and they're at a pool, and I thought it was like one of the most hilarious things I had ever seen in my life. Of course, I'm a kid, so everything is the craziest thing in your life at that age. Anyway, the cat jumps off the diving board down into the pool, and he hits the water with like the force. He might as well have been landing on concrete. Like he just freaking splat straight on top of the water, just completely flat with a super hard impact smack. It was extremely loud, just plow, and then he kind of like. I thought it was hilarious. The way it was animated, very well, and I love Tom and Jerry. Lots of good example of great animation. Good old Chuck Jones. So that's squash and stretch. Squash it down, show that gravity, show that impact. Stretch it out, show that speed. Um, and then one of the things that was didn't really dawn on me till later in school um, was that squash and stretch doesn't always have to you know it can be applied in other ways. It's not always about deformation. um, like the human body doesn't actually stretch, uh, and it doesn't really squash, not without a lot of pain, but you can compress and elongate with your muscles and stuff like that. And that type of squash and stretch is definitely something that should be applied. Um, Take that classic superhero landing. That's a perfect example of squash and stretch. When the hero comes down, their whole body just kind of compresses as they land into it. And that shows that weight. It shows the impact. And then especially when you have the ground buckle underneath the character, it's like, whoa, they hit the ground so hard. It's crazy. It's classic. It's starting to get overdone. Yeah, Marvel, stop doing the same stuff over and over. Uh, but at the same time, yeah, it's like, hey, it works. It's cool. Um, but that's an example of squash and stretch, not just cinematically, but animation wise too. Um, and also, it depending on your animation style, what you're going for, squash and stretch can be used in various ways in other objects, things that might not necessarily something you wouldn't normally squash and stretch. Example that just popped in my head: Inspector Gadget, classic cartoon, good animation, great show. That theme song though, whew, it's baller. Um, anyway, uh, when his car transforms and it goes from like the minivan to the super assault car for the police, it actually like stretches, gets shorter as it compresses, and then as it speeds off, it elongates. and it's super fluid, done by hand. It's awesome, and it stretches and it's as it goes off. Classic cartoon, very well done. Um, and that's another good example of squash and stretch. So let's move on to the next one. Uh, Number three. Let me pause my mic. Oh, microphone back on. There we go. Got my tea here. It's hot. It's actually a hot Arnold Palmer. Uh, got some lemonade in here. So that's squash and stretch. Um, Next up, we have anticipation. Anticipation is all about getting that action ready. Before a character does the big animation, a lot of times you want to have that anticipation pose. Anticipation can be done through the character's position. It can be done through facial expression. It can be done through uh, the way a scene is drawn. Anticipation can also be built up with your background. Um, Having a camera ominously looking at a door and the camera just like focusing on a door and then zoom in on the doorknob. You're just waiting for that doorknob to turn. It's just kind of like one of those things where uh, you're being set up to know, almost kind of know what is going to happen next, or at least anticipate. Um, Before a character takes off running, they might squash around. Get ready, on your mark, get set, go, and take off running. That's another way to do anticipation. Um, but again, you kind of want to keep what you're doing in mind, what your goals are. Um, and I say that because if you take a video game animation, for example, you'll find that there's not a whole lot of anticipation in video game animations with character movement and stuff like that. And that's done for a reason. One, it cuts down on unneeded animation, and two, the anticipation is actually built into the media that is video games. When you're playing Super Mario Brothers and you press the jump button, you're already anticipating Mario to jump. You don't have to have Mario to get into a pose to get ready to jump to say, I'm gonna jump now. By the person playing the game pressing that button, that anticipation is already there, so there's no need to animate that. It's just one of those things that, what I mean by, keeping in mind what your end goals are, what the target is, your target audience is, and how that's going to come across. Because animation is a long process, and no matter how you do it, there's a lot of shortcuts that can be taken. Some things are faster than others, but in most instances, it's a lot of work that goes in animation. So you don't want to be wasteful. And being wasteful is animating things that don't need to be animated, um, which is kind of goes into one of my biggest animation weakness is uh, getting overly detailed. Um, you know, um, as I mentioned before, I was in the military, which instilled in me a sense of attention to detail, especially what I did. My job was very detail oriented because if steps were skipped, if things were missed, people died. It was just that simple. You had to pay attention to what you're doing. Uh, and so, while it is a good thing to to be detail oriented. Is I consider it a negative to get too wrapped up in the details. I try to keep the big picture in mind. Um, Even when I'm drawing on paper, like sometimes I'll get so focused that I'm pretty sure it's just mental because it's just not physically possible. But it seems like my vision actually zooms in to what I'm drawing, and I'll see like just like this small section of like the elbow, and I'm just drawing it, and I'm so focused on it, and it's like, why am I spending all this time on this elbow when you've got all this other things that I should be drawing to? And so one of my teachers would used to always tell me, hey, pause, step back, kind of look at the whole thing. Um, and I would have to catch myself. It's something I'm working on, getting better at it. Still got ways to go. Um, Another example of animation I did a tank explosion. There was this tank that gets hit with a missile, and then the huge fireballs and all this kind of stuff. And I spent so much time, a ridiculous amount of time, because I got this. I got this model of a Hellfire missile, something that could actually damage a tank, um, and I animated the fire coming out of the missile, and I spent way too much time making a realistic, nice looking fire coming out of the end of this missile. Um, and in the final product, it's a missile. It goes by fast. There was no need to spend that much time making the fire. I could have put an orange blob and it probably would have looked the same versus putting a realistic fire because it's a missile. It's and it hits so quick. Like I got way too wrapped up into making that fire coming out of that missile look good and look realistic. If you pause it, it looks nice. It looks great. But like I said, I spent way too much time on it. So let's move on to the next. So we've done staging, setting them up. We've done squash and stretch, showing our weight, showing our speed. Uh, Anticipation, setting them up uh, setting them up, letting them know what's going to go down. Uh, Next, we got exaggeration. Exaggeration is another principle of animation. Um, One of the things that exaggeration definitely plays into, I think, more is with 2D animation, especially when you're animating by hand, be it on pencil and paper or if you're animating digitally. I think exaggeration should be done mm, a little more deliberately than you normally would, because I like to, I tend to do more realistic stuff when I animate realistic people, realistic situations. Um, when I'm doing like my own personal stuff, it's fairly generally grounded in the realm of realism. And with that, my animations are sometimes subtle, sometimes a little too subtle. Um, so sometimes I have to go back and animate more than what would be exaggerate the movement more than what it would be in reality in order for it to read well when it's seen on screen. Something like a like breathing, for instance. Like I'm breathing now, I'm expiring, but you can't really see the movement like in my body right now. Um, but if you're animating, I might want to kind of maybe push that a little bit if I wanted to kind of show, because you don't want to have dead animation. You don't want to have an animation where a character is completely stiff. Um, usually. Sometimes you do want that if you want to draw attention elsewhere. Um, so, like I said, you got to keep the end product in mind. You might want to have something being completely stiff because you want the audience to focus on something else. A good example of that, if the person is delivering like some dialogue that's really important to the plot, and you really want the audience to focus on what's being said, you might zoom the camera in on the character's mouth, make sure they're not doing anything else, uh, and so that they're kind of focused. You don't want to have the character doing dialogue and doing hand movements and shooting a basket and all this kind of other stuff if he's saying something really important that you want the audience to focus on. You kind of want to minimize other things. Um, but that exaggeration will definitely help when you're trying to sell things, sell ideas. If you want to sell the idea of something being heavy, really exaggerate that movement, really push it, make the character struggle to like they can't even lift it because it's super heavy, or you want to emphasize how weak the character is. That's an example of exaggeration. Uh, if you want to punch a character, punch them and have them fall down. Yeah, they got hit pretty hard. They go flying across the room. They got really hit hard. They go flying off the planet. Well, you get the idea. You know, exaggeration can be used to really sell things. So you definitely want to push that movement, make things more interesting. All right, those are four down. We still got quite a ways to go. Um, let's see. Did I want to bring up? That's going to be a problem. We'll deal with it when it gets here. Next up, we're going to go to solid drawing. Solid drawing. Now, this is when I was taking it. I didn't really learn to. As I mentioned, I did animation and stuff, for a long time before I was even in the military. While I was in the military, um, most of that was done using kind of like a machinima style. Think of like when people make movies using like The Sims or like Red versus Blue, where they're using the game engine and using a different product to kind of like control where the characters move and do little things to kind of like make them talk and whatever. That was kind of animation that I was doing. So I didn't really learn to draw till I got to school. Um, Still working on it, still learning, still improving. So solid drawing, when I first was introduced to it, it kind of came across as the drawings have to be nice, they have to be perfect. But that's not what solid drawing is about. Solid drawing is more about volumes and consistency and clarity. Uh, Really about clarity, really about consistency. Um, I'm going to go back a bit when we talked about squash and stretch. Um, when you have that ball and it's stretching, it's getting longer but also skinnier like that. The volume stays the same. The shape is changing, but the volume stays the same. And that's kind of where that solid drawing comes into place. You don't want it to you start off with the ball like this and then it hits the ground and all of a sudden it's like that, because it started off like that, then all of a sudden it went flat like that, and now it's back like that. That's inconsistent. So that's where the solid drawing comes in. You want to keep it consistent. Um, if you're going to do blue ball bounce challenge, which I hope you will, um, and you're not really comfortable with drawing, use something to help you. Use a stencil. Stencils are great, especially for drawing circles. There are plenty artists out there who can't freehand draw a perfect circle. I know I can't. Um, there's some people that can. I envy them. Um, you can also, I had this idea when I was thinking about the ball bounce challenge of ways to kind of help um, someone who might struggle with it. One of the things I came up with was using a like a rubber band or a hair tie, which is a circle shape, um, and then you can use that to as a stencil to draw your your ball, and then you can actually squash it and stretch it, and it'll be that same volume. It'll be that same consistency. Um, and if you're doing it digitally, say in After Effects or another program, you can use your transformation tool to do your stretch. And what you want to do is you definitely want to make sure that you unlink the proportions so that you can change the proportions for your squash and stretch and use those numbers. Um, so for the squash and stretch, let me shrink this guy. And then we're going to bring this back up. Open with QuickTime. Come on, QuickTime. Why are you taking so much time? Um, anyways, this is taking way too long. I'm losing my patience. So for the squash and stretch, what I did was use transformation tool in Adobe After Effects. And what I did was I stretched out the up and down axis and using the numbers, did a little bit of math. Yes, sometimes math is involved in animation. Using the same numbers of the increase this way, I use the same number to decrease it that way, so that the increase and the decrease was the same numbers. That way I have the same proportions without really having to look at it and go, is this right or is this wrong? Just kind of be spot on the money and just use that. Um, but with that being said, rules are rules. Rules can be broken. Uh, but thing with breaking rules, be it animation principles or any other artistic rules or fundamentals or anything like that, you don't want to break rules out of ignorance. Uh, that usually won't get you a good result. Um, knowing the rules and then breaking the rules with intention can usually get you good results. If you want to think about somebody like Vincent Van Gogh, um, who does some pretty funky stuff with did some pretty funky stuff with like perspective and things like that. It's not that he couldn't draw with or illustrate with perspective. He actually had perfect perspective. There's been images that he's created that has been found that showed he had perfect perspective. He was doing, those perspective warps to kind of show, um, to make it more interesting. Um, another artist that does crazy things with perspective, Dr. Seuss. Uh, those illustrations definitely have some weird curved perspective, which I find really hard to do. Um, but it's done like that with intent. It's not done on accident. It's not done a little bit. Um, and that's another kind of brings it back to exaggeration, especially if you're going to break the rules. You got to shatter them. Don't kind of do it a little bit, because then even if it is intentional, it might come off unintentional, and you don't want that. They be like, oh, why did you do that? That's just weird. Shouldn't have did that. But if you do it in a way that is kind of like completely shattering, it's like, okay, that was done on purpose. You know, you don't want to fall in that realm of, was that intentional? Was it not intentional? I'm so upset my Adobe After Effects preview window is not showing. Like, it shows the window. Maybe if I refresh, try it again. One more time. This is last time. Won't do it again, I promise. Window capture. Okay. And it looks all types of funky. That's just weird. Okay, what if I do this? Then take this away. Oh, snap. Oh, snap. That actually works. That's crazy. All this time has been really bugging me. Okay, so where are we? We're going to be talking about exaggeration. Let's see, I got this. This is kind of an example of exaggeration. And what's really exaggerated here is, let's bump that up, bump that up. Bit too much. There, I think that looks good. Uh, what I've exaggerated here is obviously that stretch though. That stretch is super exaggerated. Super. There's no way in the world. I take that back. Because if this was like a water balloon, it probably would give it a pretty good amount of stretch like that. Yeah, water balloon might stretch that much. It's kind of some pretty good exaggeration there. Really good example. I'm glad I decided to try the monitor capture for that. I don't know why the window capture wasn't showing it properly for the After Effects. So with that being said, I am going to. Oh no, I'm shrinking. Oh no. Oh. Just a little bit. I'm going to go down here. Hang out in a different corner. Uh, so yeah, that is exaggeration there. Which is super good because now I can show another thing that I was going to talk about later. Um, Exaggeration, solid drawing. Got to get that consistency. Um, Moving on to number 6 on the list. It's going to be appeal. Appeal applies to, I want to say, colors and composition and design. You want to have a nice appeal. And it's aesthetic that goes with what you're going for. Um, Usually, if you're doing something for like a children, stick to those primary colors, bright colors, uh, things that kind of jump out, simple shapes. At least that's what I would do. Um, if you're going for something gritty, you want to use muted colors, something dark, uh, finer lines, heavier detail. Um, and if you want to do something in between, you kind of do something in between. Um, I don't want to spend too much time on appeal because there will be some of you that are new to the game, and I don't want to stress appeal too much because it might scare you off, and that's not my intention. I don't want to scare anyone off of doing animation because it is a awesome, awesome, awesome form of storytelling that can really get your ideas, get those stories out there. You can use it to express yourself, and it's just fun. I think it's just fun. You know, we're gonna move into ease in and ease out. You may also hear it as slow in and slow out. It's really the same thing. Some people say ease in, ease out. Some people say slow in, slow out. Um, this is another one that uh, kind of went over the top of my head in school, at least when I was first introduced to it. Just the wording of it. With ease in, ease out, which is what the way it was presented at school. Uh, didn't really click uh, as to what they were talking about. So we're going to go to this little slide here. I am going to make this window a bit bigger. So we're going to start with, oops, the top one. We're going to take the top one away. This ball is going to go from left to right, straight for it. I hit play, it just goes. It just goes. Now, what is wrong with this picture? There is absolutely no ease in and no ease out. If you had your animation start here and just go here, this is 2 seconds, by the way. Uh, it has absolute consistent movement, which is not natural at all. It's very mechanical movement, which is fine if you're animating like something mechanical, but even something mechanical usually will not have this from start to finish consistent speed. It's just physically impossible to go start at maximum speed and stop at maximum speed with no acceleration or deceleration. That's, middle school physical science right there. Nothing complicated. So we're going to bring in our second ball here, and this one on top has got some ease in and ease out as we kind of zoom. See how it takes a little bit to get started, and then it speeds up, actually surpassing that first ball, and then it slows down as it comes to a stop. Got to put those brakes on. Comes to a stop. That's that ease in or slow in. You want to slow it down as it gets to the stopping point. You want to start off slow and then build up speed in the beginning. Kind of think of yourself running. You kind of start off, even if you're a sprinter and you accelerate really quick, there is still acceleration. You don't start instantly at your top speed. There is a period of time, no matter how small, there is a period of time where you go from zero and build up. That's just physics. That's not even basic physics. We're not gonna get all sciencey on you, because I don't want to scare anybody off. That's just basic, middle school physical science right there. It's just how the world works. Now let's see if I can do that. And if I hold shift, get both of these up here. Good. Does that look like it can be seen on screen? Yeah, it does. We're going to get into the next principle, which definitely, no, I didn't want to do that. There we go. Focus in here. Zoom out a little bit. Zoom. And then get this guy and this guy. Okay. Hopefully this can be seen rather easily. If you notice on this line, there are little dots. dots, little dots, little dots throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole little line here for each one. Top one's for the top guy, bottom one's one for the bottom guy. If this was a traditionally made cell animation, pencil and paper, each one of these little dots would be a different sheet of paper. Each one of these dots would be a different drawing. And if you look closely, the before I go into spacing, we'll start with timing. Timing is when key events take place, either the start of the action or the end of an action. That's your timing. When it starts, when it stops. That's your timing. Uh, think of a beat, think of rhythm. That's your timing. Spacing is everything in between, how it's chunked out. If you look at the top example and the bottom example, they both start on the same frame. They both end on the same frame. The timing is the same. They both have the same timing. The spacing, however, is very different. Looking at the bottom line, you can see each dot is evenly spaced, which is why it has that consistent speed from here to here. There is this completely even spacing. Each dot is evenly spaced. And if you think about frames, each one of these is a different drawing. And each of those drawing, the ball moves the exact amount of times. The top one, spacing is completely different. There are much more dots in the beginning up here, which means there is less change from the starting position from here to here. This is what gives us that slow out. This is what gives us that easing out. This is what starts it off slow by putting more drawings, not more drawings, I misspoke, by putting less change from the start position. Your drawing from here to here doesn't move very much. You're drawing from here to here down here, there's that same amount of distance, the ball change. And then the same on the other end. When it gets to here, there's more drawings. All the drawings are kind of crunched up here. In the middle, they're spaced out. That's what makes it go by quicker, gives it that speed, because it goes from here to here to here to here. Whereas down here, it's going here, 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 here. And if we scrub through it, see that slow start at the beginning, speed up, and then woo, hit the brakes and slow down and come to a rest. And they both stop at the exact same time because they have the exact same timing. That is timing and spacing. Start and stop, that's your timing. When those key events take place. That's that timing. Spacing is how you space out your drawings. If this was done on paper, there would be some overlap. Been debating on whether or not I would show this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is my first on paper animation. It's kind of hard to see if you look closely. Hey, there's my little ball. It's pretty jank. I kept this. I found them. Anywho, there's my little ball. And that was the first frame. And if we flip to the next frame and just kind of see how they're more or less right on top of each other, that was me creating some of that ease in. And then if we flip ahead some frames. We have here, ball is here. Ah! Ah! Well, that didn't work out very well now, did it? Like, eh. And then from there to there, it's like all the way over there. Um, this didn't turn out very well. Needed a lot more drawings. My spacing wasn't very well done. And just in general needed more drawings to kind of smooth it out. It was kind of chunky. What I did enjoy was the background I did for this guy, which was this funky, toothless, gnarly looking zombie head, and basically the ball was the eyeball falling out of the socket and bouncing. And then it did a little, the eyeball like exploded a bit and had little bits of eyeball morph into like the word fin, like to be the end of the animation. I wonder if I still have that somewhere. I don't know, it's kind of embarrassing to show. I hate looking at my old stuff because it's like, I know I can do so much better. It's like I could do better drawing with my toes now. Maybe not with my toes, but you get the idea. Cat is so way behind. Anywho, pause right quick. Oh, I can take a drink. Alright, should be back online with the audio. Had to finish off my tea. It was starting to get cold. That room temperature, which almost nobody likes, but it's still drinkable. I have a new beverage now. Cheers. Alright, so that is number 7, easing in, easing out, or slow in, slow out. Timing and spacing. That's what we just did. Timing and spacing. That's timing and spacing. Timing, start and stop. Spacing, the distance between the frames. Alright, now the next one, we're going to do overlap and follow through. Overlapping and follow through is definitely an important one. I think it's right up there with squash and stretch as far as making things look the way they should. Things kind of think of that whip action a lot of times. Depending on what you're animating, how much of that whip action you're gonna get will change. But most things have like some kind of whip action. For example, I'm gonna let's see. Yeah, this will work. I got this here post-it note. If I take it and move it, see how it just kind of the top half of it kind of keeps going a little bit. That's right there is that overlap. You had just kind of think about getting into a car accident. You get it. You kind of whip forward. Um, Body goes forward, starts to come back. Head continues to going forward until it catches, the length of the neck uh, joints, and then it comes back and catches up to the body. Um, and if my fro was a bit bigger, you'd have a third level of overlap. When my head goes forward, the fro would kind of just a little bit, obviously not as much. Unless you got the Huey Freeman fro. If you got the Huey Freeman fro, then it'll definitely whip like that, and you just kind of like have that overlap. Um, Definitely want to get that going. Got to get that overlap. Moving right along, we're going to talk briefly about secondary action. Secondary action is something that's definitely important. Secondary action is the action that a character or object is doing that's kind of secondary to the main action. So, like, the main action would be, you know, my mouth movement, because that's kind of like the primary focus. That secondary action would be the hand on the beard. Uh, Blinking is a secondary action. Um, did one animation where the character didn't blink through the whole thing, and it was like, why does she not blink? Because I didn't have time to animate her blinking. That's why. School project. Sometimes you gotta gotta make those sacrifices in your animation, because deadlines are real, whether you're in school or not. Um, I've only had maybe 3 clients not really care about when the project got done. Uh, it's very weird because I'm used to that. Got to get it done a certain amount of time. Uh, so I'm usually on it. But when a client's like, "Hey, do it whenever, as long as it gets done," I'm just like, "What?" It's kind of weird. Um, Sorry, spaced out there for a second. Talking about trying to stay on topic here. Secondary action. Uh, Got to get that secondary action going. So blinking, breathing, that up and down chest motion, depending on your character. Um, if your character's nervous, they might doing things with their hands. They might do a little pace back and forth while doing something else. Maybe humming or talking to themselves, trying to calm themselves down. You might have a guy working. He's cutting a log. He might also be whistling. He might also be humming a tune, or he might, be doing this motion with his hands because he's sawing, but he's listening to music, so his head's doing this joint. Then you might want to time it all up, so he's just kind of like just going with it, having fun while he's at work. Or he might be in the opposite mood. He might be pissed off, so he's just just beast mode with it because he's out there sawing a log in the rain because he's being yelled at to get firewood. But he's like, but it's raining. If I'm sitting there sawing the wood, by the time I bring it in, you're not going to be able to light it on fire. But they're like, we want firewood now. You know, all depends on the situation. But that secondary action, while is important, it's not overly important. Yes, it's important. Um, but it's kind of one of those things where it might not necessarily break your animation for not having it, but it will definitely help sell your animation if it's there. Uh, you definitely want to add it in if you can. Um, Next, we're going to talk about arcs. Arcs are very important whether you're drawing just a still image or you're animating. One of my drawing instructors said something. I don't know why, but it just stuck with me. He says Mother Nature doesn't draw straight lines. Um, and I thought about it, just like, trying to think of somewhere in nature where you see a perfectly straight line and you just don't. There's just Mother Nature doesn't draw straight lines. Um, Everything has like a curve to it, some kind of circular motion to it, some kind of bend to it. Uh, Nothing natural is usually perfect. Nothing natural is like perfectly straight. Uh, Things like houses and machines and cars like that, yeah, they have straight lines because they're machine made. Uh, they're not natural. Uh, Things like the human form, animals, plants, trees, all that stuff, fruit, none of it has a straight line on it. Um, there's at least some kind of bend to it, even if something as small as like the stem on like a grape seed or something is not a perfect straight line. It's gonna have at least a little bit of curve to it. Um, and that's what and arcs also come into play into motion. Uh, when a character's feet are moving, they don't go. It's kind of I can't even do it with my hands because, like I said, those arcs. They don't go like straight across. The feet kind of up in this arc, in that arc, in that arc. Um, and if a character's throwing something, there's going to be a up and down motion. That's that arcs. Those arcs come into play with motion. They come into play with illustration. Um, Telling you like it was told to me, Mother Nature doesn't draw straight lines. It's the way it works. Um, so you want to keep that in mind when you're doing your animation. Um, Things can not have an arc to it, like our blue balls here. Got these blue balls. Because they're on a flat surface. They're just rolling. They're just rolling. But what's but they're on a floor, which is not made by Mother Nature. Now, if this is outside on the ground, like like land, there would be bumps to it, unless it's like a parking lot or something where man is taking over. It's not going to be a completely flat surface. So again, Mother Nature doesn't draw straight lines. Now, moving on, we are on animation principle number 12 before we get to the bonus rounds. So, the next one we have, number 12, is straight ahead versus key pose animation. Um, and this is kind of like a process A or process B kind of notion. Um, Straight ahead is you start at the beginning of your animation. You draw it, 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 you draw it until you get to the end of the motion. If you're animating a ball from here to here, you start your drawing here. You draw each drawing all the way up till you get to the end. Um, the other process is called key poses. And with that, you would do the start animation, you would then do the end animation, and then you would maybe do a midpoint animation. That start and that end, those are what are called key poses. Those called key poses because they're very important. Those are those poses that are um, kind of the emphasizing points of the motion. Um, if I was to pick up something from my desk, like this little stapler here, a key pose would be me prepping my hand. That's that anticipation, getting ready to pick up the object. My hand physically on the object when it makes contact, that would be another key pose. Um, and then be picking the object up once it's all the way up would be another key pose. Um, and then those breakdown poses would be those that pose that's like in between, like dead center in between those key poses. You definitely want to have those strong and read well. Um, Throughout the motion, because those are going to be uh, I don't want to phrase this, kind of those selling points of the animation. You want that to definitely sell well and to read well. Uh, Going back to that solid drawing, you know, those that appeal, those are those things that come into play with doing those breakdown poses. Um, there are pros and cons to both methods. Straight ahead is usually done when you want kind of more of a fluid type motion. Uh, just kind of what I did when I did the exploding eye portion of the animation. I think I'm going to redo this. I think I've just decided for my on paper project, I'm going to redo my eyeball bouncing out of the uh, zombie skull. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to dig up my old video and do a side-by-side comparison, old versus new. Um, that'll be my traditional ball bounce. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be doing various animations throughout my stream. What I want to do is do a ball bounce. One, because it's simple and it teaches you pretty much all the skills, all the basics, and the process of animation. And in order to kind of show uh, the steps that need to be done with animating, I'm going to do a ball bounce on paper. And we're going to stream that. I'm not going to do it 2D that way. I'm going to do it 2D digital. I'll probably use Adobe After Effects to show a kind of a flashed out way of animating. I will probably also use either Toon Boom or Photoshop, or maybe both, to show a digital drawing where it's still frame by frame drawn, just done digitally. I'm also going to do it 3D. We'll be using Maya for that one. And I'll do a ball bounce that way. And I will also do stop motion, which I've never done before, have not done stop motion ever. And I will stop motion animate a ball bounce, which is really going to be fun. Hopefully it doesn't turn out to be a complete disaster, which it very well could be because I've never done it before. And that'll be done live, so hopefully it doesn't turn out to be a disaster, because that would be pretty silly. But hey, that's how we learn. So I'll be learning right along with you when we do the animation stop motion. Um, and this is it all be done just kind of show like the steps that need to be done in order to animate in various ways. We'll be applying all 15 principles of animation, no matter which way we go. Maybe not all 15. Some of these don't apply to. Yeah, no, we'll be doing all 15. Yeah, we will. Um, with all my wall bounces. So leave comments in the comment section on what you want to see after that. We're going to be doing probably some other experiments. I'll be doing some experiments with frame rates that I haven't done. That's why it's an experiment, because I haven't done it. So hopefully it'll turn out well, or turn out to be a cluster cluck. What we're gonna do. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna make some make some animations and do some weird stuff. And then we'll probably do, I think it'd be kind of boring to only do ball bounces. So what I might do is do a ball bounce, uh, and then do something else using the same method. So do a ball bounce on paper and then do something else on paper. Do a ball bounce, uh, digital, cell style, and then do something else the same way. Um, we'll probably also do a rotoscope. That's another way to animate. Um, but yeah, we'll do a rotoscope too. I'll probably come up with a list, uh, and do various, just pick one at random and just go down a list. Or if there's people who comment, say, hey, I really want to see this, then we might, prioritize a little more. But we'll definitely do them all. Uh, do that basic ball bounce and all these various ways to animate, so you can just kind of see the process. And then as I'm working, I'll come up with some ideas on what I want to animate, for the other stuff. What I'm hesitant about is doing something too ambitious, because I always have lots of big ideas. And for the stream, I want to keep it simple, simple projects. Because if I'm going to be doing something big, it needs to be the projects that I'm already working on. Uh, and hopefully you guys will get to see that one of these days. We get some followers, get some uh, get some good benefits going. Um, and then that'll be a good way for me to give back to the followers, kind of show you where your tips and donations have been going, show you how the project's going along, uh, and you actually get to see things in the making. Um, hopefully that'll go really well. But anywho, that is straight ahead versus key poses. It's just, do you want to draw or create, uh, each individual thing as you go along? Do you want to do those key poses, or do you want to do like a mix in between? I find that doing blends and doing, taking a little bits of both, uh, is definitely a positive thing to do. I don't think you have to always do one or the other. Um, anyway, time for the bonus principles. Let me take a sip. Ah, all right. So, ready? You ready? Principle number 13. Save your shit. That's right. Save your shit. That is principle number 13. Save often. Use backups. Save in intervals. This will save you heartache, pain, tears, all of the above. And when I say save your shit, it doesn't necessarily mean on a computer. Take, for example, this animation here. Done on paper. No way to save it. Well, it's on the computer, so it's saved. But one of the things that I learned while doing another animation, actually, I'm gonna go see if I can dig it up. It shouldn't take long. Be right back. Alright, here is another animation I did. Here's the background. It's a little stream outdoor scene with a little bridge. Um, and applying principle number 13, saving my shit, what I did was put up here in the corner, you can see it, that's awfully blurry. See if I can hit that. And then that. See if that clears it up. It cleared it up a little bit, I think. Maybe if I back it up, there we go. Put little numbers and labels so I knew which frame. See, like this right here was frame 17 and 18. This was background frame 2A, background 2A, because what I did was I had a background like a 2A, and I think it's like a 2B and a 2C. No, just background A, 2A and 2B. Because you have the main background, which is this. You have your ground plane, you got the little bridge, you got this area right here, and then you had background A, some ripples, and then background B there's another set of ripples, and those will alternate so it looked like the water was rippling. This is for our emotional flour sack project. It was alright. Didn't turn out too super spiffy. I don't know if yeah, I'm not redoing this one. Definitely not. Don't care about the flour sack. But anyway, that is how I saved my bacon, by numbering the pages with the frames. Because lo and behold, while I'm at the capture station, getting my animation scanned into the computer, captured on the computer, somebody who shall remain nameless bumped station and all my papers fell. No! But guess what? They were labeled, so I was able to put them back in order. No harm, no foul. Cheers. Alright. So that is one way to save when you're working with paper, is to label them so you know what frames are what. And whatever program you're using, make sure you're saving and saving often. Use backups. Don't just save in one spot. Save in at least two different. Save in at least one of the locations. Have your main and then a backup. Save on a thumb drive. Save on those cloud storage. Cloud storage is great if you got it. But I tend to, just for my own personal sanity, I tend to not rely too heavy on cloud storage, because sometimes it goes down. Might not have internet access at the moment, so I prefer having a local storage backup whenever I can. And then saving in intervals. Incremental save is something you have something that can be built in a program automatically. Maya has it. Adobe After Effects has it. I don't think Photoshop has incremental save. Basically, incremental save is you have your whatever you're working on, you save it, and then you save an additional copy of it, but it's in a different stage. So that way, if you want to go back to an earlier state, you can, in case things go awry or they don't turn out quite well. You don't have to start over from scratch, which is what you would do if you always saved over your original file. I usually use my incremental stage save in stages. So like my initial stage, say if I'm doing a 3D animation, Like I'll at the start I'll save, and then my next incremental save will be once all the modeling's done. Once all the modeling's I might have two or three, depending on what I'm animating, two or three incrementals um, between the modeling. Once the modeling is complete, I'll save it uh, and save it like project name and then modeling complete. Uh, and then I'll start on my texturing, and then once the texture is complete, I'll do like textures complete. That way I can go back to when those specific steps were done in case there's something that gets messed up or I want to try something a different way. That way I have that option. Um, so that's where saving in intervals really helps out. And sometimes you dig yourself into a hole that you just can't get out of. You go down a path of a mistake on top of a mistake on top of a mistake, and then sometimes you can't undo those mistakes. And so what you want to do is go back, and sometimes you can start all the way fresh, or you want to just go back to a time when you knew everything was kosher. That would be a good way to take advantage of those incremental saves. All right, now let's move on to animation principle number 14. 14. And it's going to be use your tech, not the other way around. Don't let your tech use you. Um, and that's all about using features, but not relying on them to do the work for you. Um, just as I mentioned about saving often, if a program such as After Effects or Maya or Photoshop, yeah, most, not all, but I want to say most software that I work with has an autosave feature. Um, Turn it on. Use that autosave, uh, but don't rely on it. Save manually every now and then, because you don't want to get that sense of, oh, I got autosave, but maybe it got turned off, or maybe something happened to it. So you want to make sure that it's getting saved. And then like what I mentioned about the lip sync, you can use it, but don't rely on it. Don't trust that it'll give you the best results just because it. Hey, we got it'll automatically do it for you. It's just one of those things. That's another way to use your tech, but not let your tech use you. Um, and the other reason is you want to have uniqueness to your product. And one of the ways of doing that is not doing what's built in. You can't just use what's already there because anybody could do that. So you want to try and stay away from that as much as possible, but don't you don't have to necessarily discount it because especially if you're just starting out, it could be a way to help give you that building block. There's no need to struggle to do something that can be done for you to help you along. I had an artist friend of mine a while back, was not a while back, but actually it was actually quite recent. She was working on an image, and she was working on some like armor plating, um, which came out pretty good. But the armor plating was kind of at an angle that was giving her a hard time as she was drawing it. And she, voiced the frustration she felt, and I was just like, why didn't you, draw your armor plating like straight on, and then use your perspective tool and your drawing software to change it to the perspective that you wanted, just to kind of like draw it straight on, and then just kind of to match the character. And then she just kind of, you know, didn't even think about it. She just wanted to. It just kind of like, it didn't occur to her to do that, and that's where that principle 14 comes in. Like she could have saved herself a lot of heartache and pain by just doing it that way. Granted, uh, at the same time doing it manually. I'm pretty sure it'll help uh, build those skills. Um, but when you're animating uh, for fun, it should be fun. There's no need to um, make things more difficult than it needs to be, and you definitely don't want to get into a place where it becomes frustrating, because then it may uh, make shy you away from it, and that's not what we want. We want you to keep going forward. We want you to strive, do better, and keep animating. Like animation is one of those things where big companies get all the glory, and I don't think they should. They do a lot of things that, quite frankly, piss me off. Um, Let me get through this last principle right quick, and then we'll talk about how these people be pissing me off. All right, number 15. Go with the best method possible. And this is something I kind of that really irks me. Uh, this is why I wanted to go ahead and jump into this principle, because people like Disney. um, whew, throat. Some people they they don't they don't go with the best method possible. They just do what standard. They do what's they've been doing before. So they do it A plus B equals C, A plus B equals C, all day, every day. Never want to innovate, never want to try anything different. So that's why I came up with go with the best method possible. Um, a good example of this would be, if you want something to look a certain way, do it that way. Um, if you can, it's just simple. There's no need to fake the funk. There was a company local here in that had a contract to do some fireworks, and the client wanted the fireworks to look have like a stop motion animation feel to it. Um, and when they started doing the project, they were doing it in 3D, and wasn't coming out quite right. And they tried doing a little 2D, and one of them finally said, "Hey, how about we just do stop motion?" You want it to look like stop motion? Do flipping stop motion. It's that easy. Uh, it's not that easy, because stop motion is not exactly easy. But that's kind of what I mean. Like, if you want it to look like stop motion, just do stop motion. Like, why is that not an option? You know what I mean? Because 3D animation is the thing to do now. 2D is making a comeback, and it will come back. But it's like some people are so fixated on 3D animation to the point where they uh, ignore that there are other methods of animation out there. Another movie fairly recently was the Peanuts movie. I watched a little behind the scenes on that, and a lot of hoops were jumped through in order to have the 3D animation have a 2D feel to it. And my first thought was, why not just do it 2D? What's the problem? Why can't you just do it 2D? If you want it to look 2D, why not just do it 2D? Crazy, right? What a strange idea. Why would you just do a 2D animation? It's the Peanuts. Like, it's Charlie Brown. It's Snoopy. It's supposed to be 2D. Like, not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with having it 3D per se, but if you are cognizant enough to want to hold on to tradition, why not do it traditionally? Like, there's, in my mind, there's really no reason not to. It's like they're so stuck in this world where they think that if they don't do it 3D, people aren't going to watch it. Like, what's your problem? Like, people want to see good stories. Like, the animation, while important, it's not the end all be all. It doesn't have to be 3D in order to sell. Just because something can something was done in 3D and it sold doesn't mean that that's the reason why it sold. The first Toy Story sold because it's a good freaking story. It's not because, oh, it's 3D. Sure, it helped, but that's not the only reason. Like, Toy Story 1 was the bomb. Like, it was the bomb. It could have they could have did the exact same movie in 2D animation, and I believe in my heart of hearts that it would have been just as popular. It might not have. It wouldn't hold the historical. Um, it wouldn't have that prestige of being the first feature-length 3D animated film. But at the same time, if it was the first 3D feature-length film and it was a crap story, nobody would talk about it other than that reason. Like, people don't, the common person won't bring up Toy Story because, oh, that was the first feature length 3D animation. Oh, they talk about because it's a good freaking movie. Like, that's the point. It was a good freaking movie. Just because it was in 3D doesn't change that fact. So if you want something to look 2D, flip and do it in 2D. That's my opinion on it. You know, um, I think Disney should definitely at least consider with some of these projects. It's just my thought, but I don't really care about Disney. I don't dislike Disney. It's just that I am more of a fan of Japanese animation. Um, Reason why I prefer Japanese animation is um, not so much the visuals, but more of the story, the subject matter. Um, I don't like everything being a musical. Um, I'm not against musicals; they're fine, but I don't want everything to be a musical. Um, I like action, and um, I like adult situations. I like having a sense that a character might actually die. I like to see blood if it's appropriate for what's going on. Recent animation that I thought was pretty awesome was the Castlevania on Netflix. Let's throw that out there. It's really, really good animation. And the music is done well. I'm a big Castlevania fan. A good story, and they didn't ruin that story. A lot of video game adaptations, they kind of waylay the story like it doesn't matter. It's like that's why people keep going back to it. Like, story is story is king. Some people get so hung up on graphics and visuals that they forget that the story is the most important part. Like, if you don't believe that the story is the most important part and not the visuals, then why do people still buy books? Yeah, people still buy books. People still read because the story is the most important part. Like, you gotta have a good story. You know, I love animation. I love animating. Visuals are great, but if that story sucks, no one is gonna care. Like, you know, that story needs to be on point. Squaresoft, Square Enix, you and your Final Fantasy games with no story. That's why people don't buy them. That's why people still play Final Fantasy VII, because of the story, not because of the graphics. Yeah, I'm trying not to get too hyped on this piece. So yeah, those are the 15 principles. We got staging, got to set it up, show them what's up, got that squash and stretch, got to show that weight, got to show that speed, got that anticipation, got to let them know what's about to happen, set them up, get them ready for it, got that exaggeration, you want to push them drawings, you want to push the movement, you want to push that motion, you want to call attention to it, make it interesting. Gotta have that solid drawing. Make sure it's clear. Make sure your volumes stay consistent. You wanna, you know, be sure to give a good visual appeal. Gotta have good composition, color, color schemes, all that design stuff, all that comes into play. Gotta have that ease in, ease out. Wanna make sure you're not having mechanical motion. You know, physics come into play in animation all the time. You don't have to understand physics. You don't have to be a math whiz. But knowing that, you know, the way things accelerate and slow down and stuff like that, is just part of the business. Timing and spacing. Gotta have that timing down. Spacing's got to be done right in order to make movement sell well. Gotta have that overlapping and follow through. Those things that uh, give more realism to the motion. Starting to pour outside. I'm kind of paranoid about power going out. I got battery backup on my computer, so it's not like I'm gonna just cut off. But my router is not on backup power. Uh, I have like one of my monitors on backup power, my CPU on backup power, and just the essentials to run a computer so I can get things shut down safely on my desktop here. Um, anyway, with over secondary action, gotta have that secondary action. Get those extra movements down, things that are going to be done in the background, those extra actions the character's going to be taking, those arcs. Mother Nature does not draw straight lines. Those arcs and movement keep things on a natural look. Uh, Straight ahead or keep hose, one or the other. You can do both. You can do both in the same animation. Just do its best. Save your shit. Don't let it. Don't let your work go to waste. Use your tech. Don't let your tech use you. Don't let these automatic features let you assume that your job is done. And go with the best method possible. If you want 2D animation, do it 2D. If you want 3D, do 3D. Uh, I understand that there's real world factors. You might not have that option to do something a certain way. And that's one of the things we'll be getting into when we start some of these projects. I will be not only showing the process of animating in different ways, we're going to be showing how to blend processes, as well as I'll probably go into mimicking processes. Probably. I might have to, that might fall into experimental category. Because I mentioned before about like doing stop motion, stuff like that. I mean, cause you can do 3D animation and have it look like stop motion. You can blend animation. A very good example of stop motion and 3D blend, Paranorman. Very well done. Uh, stuff like Coraline. Get that, get that 3D, get that stop motion. But stop motion was 3D. Uh, and that's number 15. Go with the best method possible. That's all the principles. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you got a better understanding if you were confused about something before. I hope my explanations were clear. Um, Feel free to hit me up with questions and comments, concerns, plans for the future. We are going to do some animation. I'm going to animate. Hopefully you animate along with me. We're going to do some traditional, we're going to do digital, we're going to do 2D, we're going to do 3D, we're going to do stop motion. We're going to experiment with stuff. We're going to do some fun stuff. We're going to do some boring stuff. And we're going to make the boring stuff fun because that's how we do. Pardon me. A little bit went down the wrong way. It burns. It burns us. Yeah, hold on. Okay. Sorry about that. Uh, yeah. Wind down the windpipe. Not good. No bueno. It's muy mal. I don't like it. Pineapples. So that's what we'll be doing in the future. And as things grow, get the uh, get the little group going, get some followers. We'll be diving into some of these projects that I've been working on. Let you guys in on it. Get all the details, the behind the scenes, and I'm even considering letting others be a part of it in some capacity or another. Um, but only time will tell how that's going to unfold. And I think we're going to wrap it up here. We've been online for 2 hours and 20 minutes now. Ooh, it's quite a bit. Um, and I'm also kind of tired of hearing myself talk at this point. We've went over 15 principles. Uh, we'll kind of talk a bit more about them as they come up in our projects. So next week, we will hopefully I'll see you again. We're gonna start on bouncing some balls, and I think yeah, you saw it live. I just made my decision. I'm gonna redo my zombie eyeball. So I'm gonna get that redone, and we'll capture it and see how it turns out. And I will hopefully find my original animation video to have that side by side comparison, because that ball bounce on paper is one of the first animations that I've ever done. It's not the first one. Uh, my first animation was actually a stripper dancing on a pole, which was pretty freaking epic. Uh, wasn't the greatest, but it came out pretty freaking epic. That's something we might do on stream again too. We might animate some strippers up in here. Um, Let me know. We can definitely do some. That was fun. I might do that again. We might do that again. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna redo my zombie eye. Zombie eye. We're gonna redo that one. We'll have a workshop next week, same time. Also, let me know in the comments about how you feel about the time. If you want to Think I should do it early? Think I should do it later? Uh, Maybe a different day. Um, Possible stream days will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Uh, I work nights, so I'm sleep during the day, and I work 4 days a week. Um, with my 9 to 5, quote unquote, because it ain't 9 to 5. Uh, and I'm also doing commissions. Uh, but those are the 3 days that I'm available to stream for right now. So if you think Friday's not really a good day, Friday night, I can probably do Thursday or Saturday. But for right now, we're gonna do Fridays at 10. Friday nights will be off the frame. Waka waka waka. Uh, Hopefully we'll see you guys next week, guys and girls. Um, yeah, come up with some questions in the meantime. Uh, Hit me up in the comment section. Um, Join in next week. We'll start. Will probably be mostly workshops, so I probably won't be on camera much. I'll probably be mostly drawing. We'll have some music going. Yeah, and we'll probably just workshop. Maybe I'll talk about the process of what I'm doing, but it'll be pretty much just straightforward drawing circles, uh, bouncing it up. What I'm actually thinking I'm gonna do, I'm probably going to, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Got an idea on how I'm gonna do it. Um, so yeah, that'll be that. Um, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good one. I'm gonna finish my beverage here, hang out for a while, probably start working on my commission, start back working on my commission. Um, and yeah, this is bye, Felicia. Wait, that's a lie. I won't be right back. We out this piece. Yeah, bye.